Welcome to That's the Law. I'm BJ Krintzman. I'm an attorney with a family practice in Newton. I do a lot of divorce stuff. I do a lot of employment law. I've been doing estate planning, but all things that really families and individuals are interested in. And from time to time, we veer a little bit off of doing straight legal topics, and we just plain have someone who makes a difference on the show. And tonight, and particularly if they live in Newton, and we're blessed with such a wealth of wonderful people who live in Newton who do make a difference. And tonight, we hit the jackpot tonight. So I'm very excited about our guest. I want you to join me in welcoming Samuel Shem. Shem, good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shem is an internationally known author. He catapulted to international fame when he wrote House of God. What year was House of God?
78.
So you've been famous for...
Well, people tried to hide it, but now I'm famous.
The House of God, which takes place at a well-known teaching hospital in Boston, and it's a story of an intern, and it's wacky, and just got an award. Tell us what the award was. I had it written down.
Yeah, I'm kosher all of a sudden. It's Publishers Weekly came out with their list of the 10 best satires of all time, and The House of God was number 2. So with my inflated ego, I said, number 2, what's number 1? So I looked, it's Don Quixote, and I said, what's so great about Don Quixote? You know.
And by the way, number 3 is Catch-22,
Right.
which was my first guess, was maybe number 1 would be Catch-22, because I think of that also as an iconic book. But you beat out Catch-22.
I did.
So that's pretty good. But we're here tonight to talk about a different book, which is, I'll give you a little sneak preview. We're going to talk about At the Heart of the Universe by Samuel Shem. This just has come out a couple of months ago. And this is really an extraordinary book about a family's return to China with their adopted daughter. So we'll get into that in a second. But before we do, I want to find out about Newton. How long have you lived here?
38 years. Same house, same street.
Same house, same street. Great. Okay, there. I think I put that book up. And do you remember how you and I first met?
I do. Do you want to tell it?
You
Or do you want me to tell it?
Well,
I
you
was...
try, and if you're wrong, I'll correct
There
you.
was, I think, a Walden Books in Newton Center at that time. And I, of course, was prowling around to see if they had my book. And you were there, and you were sort of looking at the book, I think. And I said, oh, and we had a conversation. And then I asked what you did, and you said, oh, I'm a lawyer, but I just am a lawyer for the Boston Shakespeare Company. No.
Okay, so a little bit wrong. What happened was the bookstore manager or the owner said, oh, do you know who that is? That's Shem. He wrote this book, and she handed it to me. Or either I was looking at it already. No, at the time I was managing director of the Boston Shakespeare Company.
That's right.
And so then meeting a well-known author and also a playwright, and I asked you if you would like to become our playwright in residence.
Right.
And he did. He was the playwright in residence at the Boston Shakespeare Company.
It's wonderful.
Around 1980.
80, yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
80.
yeah, I know.
It was wonderful, wonderful.
And then it turns out that we both love Thai food. So we bump into each other all the time at Amarin Thai.
Right,
because
Amarin.
you're really there. I mean,
I'm there. It's right down the street, you know.
You're there all the time.
I own half of one of their tables, you know.
So, when you read through the books that you've written on the inside of the, on the title page of your book, and it begins with House of God. That was your first book. So it's really a chronicle of your life, what you've done, because House of God was about the world of medicine. The next 2 books was that Fine and
Mount Misery.
Mount Misery, and those are both
About psychiatry.
About psychiatry. And you describe yourself now as a recovering psychiatrist.
I'm in recovery from being a psychiatrist, yes.
Right. And those are both, and they're also satirical and very funny. And what I remember about the book called Fine is that the doctor's name is Fine, and whenever anybody asks him anything, how are you doing? Fine. You know, it's just fine. How was the movie? Fine. You know, so the fine becomes the answer. It's very, very funny. Then your writing kind of takes a turn, and I think this has to do with your marriage, or certainly with your relationship with Janet Surrey, that led finally to a marriage, right?
Finally.
And tell us about the books you wrote that are about partnerships.
Yeah, my life changed with Janet. We we decided in '86, of all things, we've known each other forever, we decided in '86 that we would work together on 2 projects, one from her area, one from mine, and mine was writing, so we came up with the idea of writing a play, and the play that we both were very interested in was about the men who founded Alcoholics Anonymous, and we wrote a play called Bill W. and Dr. Bob, which has been, thank God, very successful all over off-Broadway 3 times, etc. And from her...
Well, excuse me, and not just off-Broadway, but the et cetera is all around the world. The premiere was here at the New Repertory Theater, and I'm on the board, or had been on the board at the New Repertory Theater at the time, I think.
Right.
So we keep weaving in and out of each other's lives, but it was an extremely successful play about the founding of AA, and there's something going on with that now too.
Well, it's on as we speak somewhere in the world. It's really quite successful. It ran for a year off Broadway, which is really wonderful. It's just a terribly important play that does good in the world, you know, which is my thing, is doing good in the world as well as writing. You know, I think writing, very old notion, writing has a purpose. You know, it's not just to write. You try to make things a bit better, I think. I try to do that in everything I do. You know, I mean, I write for 2 reasons. One is to call attention to injustice, and the second is the danger of isolation and the healing power of good connection. And so the second thing we did with Janet and I, she had at Wellesley started this institute that instead of having the self at the center of psychological health, you can measure the health and growth of a person psychologically by the quality of their connections. So I write about the danger of isolation and the healing power of good mutual connection. So we wrote a book called We Have to Talk, Healing Dialogues Between Women and Men, which is just great.
Well, you slurred that together. It's called We Have to Talk.
We Have to Talk. :
Healing
Dialogues Between Women and Men.
Right,
right. Available, all this.
And may I ask, does this reflect your relationship with Janet? Are you able to do these? Are you able to practice what you're preaching?
Well, what we found...
And working on your relationship yourselves.
Well, yeah, we did have to work on our relationships, and we're working with 20,000 men and women all over the world. But the latest thing, the third thing I did with Janet came out last year, which you might want to show people. It's called The Buddha's Wife.
Is that this one?
Yeah,
The Buddha's Wife. Can we get a shot of that? I don't know what camera's up, but...
The Buddha's Wife, The Path of Awakening Together. And I won't go into it, but it's about the Buddha's wife and a path where you awaken with people, not just by going out alone.
Have you got the book? Doesn't...
Anyway.
Okay, there it is. Yeah.
The thing, in answer to your question, BJ, the first part is a novel, which I loved writing, and she did too, because she's learned how to do it.
The Buddha's Wife, which
the first part is a novel. The second part is a non-fiction commentary on the novel. And we had such a hard time with that because I have a fiction brain, she has a non-fiction brain, and I just went crazy. And one time we were having such trouble, we came into the kitchen, and our daughter Katie was there. She was about 20 at the time, 22 at the time. She took one look at us. She said, "I'm out of here." It's a great book, though.
That's the Buddha's Wife.
The Buddha's Wife.
Okay.
Yeah, lovely book.
And now this brings us to the current book.
Yes.
The real reason that you're here, we want to talk about At the Heart of the Universe. And, well, describe what the story is.
You want to hold that one up with the cover?
I would, but I can't tell on the monitor whether they're getting it or not. Are you getting it if I hold up the book? I think so. Okay. Go ahead.
At the Heart of the Universe, we adopted our daughter Katie from China, from Changsha, China, when she was 4 months old. And we then joined and helped form and joined a large community in New England called Families of Children from China, which had a whole support. We had to go over with 7 other couples. They wanted you to go 8 at a time, 8 couples at a time to adopt. So we did that, and we kept in touch. And what people suggested one does when, well, I should say it was the greatest moment of my life, you know, adopting her, you know.
Holding her for the first time,
oh,
or
yeah,
just...
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, no, it was just amazing. When they brought her out from the orphanage, and, And it's sort of suggested that you go back when your child is old enough, you know, to sort of introduce her to China, from where she came from. And so we did that when she was 10. And it was really quite wonderful. And something happened in that trip that created this, that said to me, you have to write this as a novel. And I'll read you. We were taking her to what happens is, because of the one child per family law.
Okay, we got some law in, Newton. We got some law in. Okay.
Policy, but it's a law, and the law is described in here. This book is set almost entirely in China, and what the boys are valued and girls are not. So in this case, as in other cases, the woman had a girl and she abandons it. The book begins with you're in the head of the birth mother in China, a peasant in China on the farm, going on a long journey all by herself to abandon her 1-month-old baby in a place where she knows it will be found. And
she leaves her in a bin of celery?
Yeah, in a vegetable stand. She opens because she knows that it will be found, the baby will be found at once.
Right.
As there's a line in the book, vegetable, she watches, and didn't take but a second, because vegetable growers know their vegetables, you know. So she and the woman, this is the way the first chapter ends, the woman cries out, "Whose baby? Whose baby? Whose baby?" And she's watching, you know, and wants to cry out mine, but doesn't, turns away. Very emotional.
But and you know, well, you wrote it, but it adumbrates, it sort of foreshadows that the love that this mother has for the child, because she's lurking to make sure the child is gotten and picked up and is safe, and doesn't just drop the kid, you know, on a speed by car kind of thing. Yeah. So you know that this mother cares about this child.
So and what's also known by everybody in China is, if you leave it in a particular place, they will take it to a police station nearby, and then each police station in this huge city of 7 million you never heard of, Changsha, each police station is located near an orphanage. So it's taken to this one orphanage, and that's where we met her, that's where we adopted her. So then we went back when she was 10, and this strange thing happened. We went to the police station. We were in the police station.
Before you get to, and we talked about, you know, that you would read this passage, but there's just something I want to say to you. I have other friends, several other friends, who have adopted daughters from China. And I remember one who, what she had said to me, and I think it's going to resonate with you, and she said, "I don't know how the Chinese government knew exactly what baby to put in my arms." It just gave me the chills. And you had that same thing when you just said,
I have to tell that story. It's a true story that's in the book, which is we were supposed to go in the first group to China from our group of 8, but we didn't get our papers in as usual. So we were going to go in the second, and everything was just about ready. It was Christmas, and our friends were coming home soon, and we got them a Christmas card, and we found one in Harvard Square that had a Chun character on it, which is from the I Ching, and it means new beginnings. And it's this wonderful thing with the root coming up to the light from the darkness, you know. We liked it so much we kept it. We didn't give it to them. And about 3 weeks later, we get the call from the adoption agency, and we were in the kitchen on speaker. And we have your baby, and there are 2 things we know about it. One is its birthday, and 2 is her name, and her name is Chun. And you know, I burst into tears.
Yeah, wow.
Janet fell down on the floor.
Wow.
And it was like it was the baby meant for us.
Incredible.
You know?
So you had the same experience. I just want to set up the passage that you're going to read for a moment, which is, as I read the book, and you're reading about this, the birth mother in China, and you read about the family in the United States, and that they're going to go over. And they do go over. They go over with the 10-year-old daughter. And, you know, it's reading like a story in a novel. And then I read this paragraph, and wow, it was like it suddenly becomes this mystery, and it became a page turner. It became a page turner. So read that paragraph, Shem.
Yeah, this actually happened. Pep is the name of the father. As Pep stares at the entrance to the courtyard in the police station, he sees a woman walk in from around the corner and come toward them. She's tall and slender. Willowy is the word that comes to mind, and young, maybe in her 30s. Unlike many of the women they've seen in Changsha, she wears a white silk dress slit up the side and covered with pink lotus blossoms, the silk flowing down to just above her ankles, revealing tan feet in blood-red sandals. A matching red parasol protects her from the heat. As she gets closer, his breath catches in his chest. She's beautiful, beautiful and sensual. A long oval face with high cheekbones and large dark eyes and shoulder-length black hair, which, in the bright sun, glints with an almost imaginary touch of red, like Katie's. That's their daughter, Katie. Thin and graceful like Katie, too. And unlike most of the Chinese women he's seen, she looks straight into his eyes and holds his gaze. Her smile seems to him somehow not casual, but deep, even elegant, also unusual here in rural China. He smiles back. She turns and walks across the yard and goes up onto the veranda and into an office of the police station. He can still see her standing in line, waiting her turn. Pep, Cleo, his wife, whispers to him, clutching his arm. Did you see that woman? Beautiful, incredibly beautiful. No, I mean, she looks just like Katie. Yeah, I thought that too. Just like, she says, of all the thousands of Chinese faces we've seen, she's the only one who looks like Katie.
Right.
And it actually happened. And we had a van that we...
Oh, that happened to you?
Oh, yeah. We had a van that we rented, and I said, and then we lost sight of her, and we were trying to find her. We said to the van driver, drive around, find her. That's how real it was. Real.
Did you find her?
No.
Oh,
she disappeared.
We're talking about real life.
Real life, we didn't find her. But
that
the spark of the... And then how to... And I should say that almost none of the hundreds of thousands of Chinese adoptees can locate their mother. It's just really hidden, maybe one or two in all that time.
Yeah.
So this part is, my thinking how it could happen.
Wow. Well, it has been said that all, let's see, I want to make sure I get this right, that all wait a minute, all fiction, that's I wanted to use the word, that all fiction is autobiographical.
Yeah.
And by the way, that all autobiography is fiction.
Yes,
right,
exactly,
right.
yeah.
But, I mean, you really draw from your life in all of your writing, which is what, tell me about that.
Well, I think I'm old enough now, you never know anything about your life until years later when you look back on different periods. And
Wow.
I've come to realize now that one of the biggest, I have a very low tolerance for inauthenticity. I have to, when I write, because it's something I always wanted to do and never was encouraged to do, when I write, I'm there. And what gets me going, which is sort of an answer to your question, which is why they're autobiographical, is what I call, hey, wait a second moments. And those are moments when, like, you may have had them today. You walking down the street, a guy asks you for some money and you don't give it to him. And you say, well, he looked okay. Wait a second, why didn't I do that? Or you do something, you say, hey, wait a second, why did I do that? When enough, hey, wait a second moments happen, like in the House of God, my internship year, which was horrible and funny and sexy, I start to write. I start to write from outrage, and there's a lot of anger in it, and satire,
Right.
and then after 7 drafts, it's readable. So
Right.
so it has to be authentic for me to jump in. And every single thing I've written, thank God, it's been very important personally to me. It's made an incredible effect on me that I say, here's what I say, somebody's got to write it. And that somebody is you, obviously. Yeah. Nobody else can write this. Nobody else could write The House of God the way I did. Yeah. There's one other book that I would like to mention because it's really, in a way, one of my most favorite. And it's won 2 National Best Novel of the Year awards in the United States. It's called The Spirit of the Place. And it is a little bit different because it's something I always wanted to do as a doctor, which was to go back to my little town, Hudson, New York, and join this old doctor, this roly-poly old smoking doctor that was my doctor, who had gotten me into medicine. And I couldn't do it in reality, so I did it in imagination. So that's it's sort of an imagined biography, going back to a place that I know every inch of, So it is autobiographical, and it's about, I must say, my quite Jewish mother, a lot of it. She dies, and then he finds her flying around and stuff like that.
But and you said you're only Jewish by birth.
No, I'm only Jewish on my parents' side.
On your parents' side, that's right. That's right.
Janet and I have a Buddhist practice, and literally all of the best Buddhist teachers now, the older first generation Buddhist teachers, are Jews. They're called Jubus.
Right. I know. Well, earlier in this, in our conversation tonight, you said that you write for a sense of making something better, a sense of justice, trying to right something wrong. And I kind of understand that with House of God, you know, because how interns were treated. And that has been changed, by the way. I understand they don't have to stay up now for 72 hours.
Partly because of the House of God.
Because of your book. So well done, well done. And I think I can guess, but tell us about the At the Heart of the Universe. What injustice?
Well, the injustice is what I mentioned. It was the one child per family policy, you know, and the severe penalties that were imposed if you had 2 children. I mean, they didn't say you couldn't, but if you did, they did say you couldn't. But then if you transgressed, you could lose your house. And what that led to was real injustice, which in the older, when it first came in, people would either take a baby out to the mountain and just leave it, or women who really wanted to keep the baby but couldn't. There are a lot of suicides, an awful lot of suicides. Some of what happened was not bad, which was the babies were adopted, further down the mountain and by different people who didn't have children. But I think it wasn't as much outrage in this, it was love. This is a love story.
Right. Well, but there is injustice about the anguish of a mother giving up the child. Also, the injustice of not being able to find your birth mother. Or, what you're saying is it's so impossible in China to trace back, and I don't know what kind of records they keep or don't keep, but certainly a baby that's left in a vegetable bin, is going to be pretty hard to trace.
I'll tell you one little anecdote that's in the book, too, because this is a love story for Katie, who wanted me to use her real name.
That's what I was going to ask you, because the parents' names are not yours and Janet's name, but Katie's name is Katie.
Katie wanted to,
and she
wanted it. I didn't have it at first, and she wanted it. That's a long story, but I'll tell you, people have all their adoption stories. Okay, she's about 5 years old. We're on our way to Bread and Circus or someplace. She's in the back of the car, and she says to both of us, we're driving, she says, "Mommy, I came out of another mummy's tummy, didn't I?" And, I shake. Here's the moment you fear, Janet goes into this very clear, very kind, very soft explanation. Is a mother's tummy. They couldn't keep you because they didn't have the money, blah, blah, blah. And we wait for what's going to happen. Can I have French fries for lunch?
The story I know is that the little boy says to his father one day, "Daddy, where do I come from?" And the daddy starts to sweat, and he goes crazy, and oh my God, he goes in through the whole thing, and the birds and the bees, and mummy, and the planting, and the seeds, and and he finishes, and the little boy says, "Well, Billy comes from Cleveland. Where do I come from?"
Yes, right.
So same thing,
But it is,
and that's in the book. Can I have the French fries?
Yes.
Yeah.
And why do I call it At the Heart of the Universe? I got it. The very last line. This was described by one reviewer as the heart of darkness with a happy ending. I believe in happy. I believe you.
But it's a surprise happy ending.
It's a surprise.
So and Newton, you have to read the book. We're talking to Shem, and we're talking about At the Heart of the Universe. So we're not giving anything away.
No, I'm not giving anything away.
All right.
But this is the last sentence. And if you could ask each of them what they are feeling at just that moment, each might say, in their own way, that they are feeling part of something else, part of something at the heart of the universe, a universal law of love. And that's what it's about. Yeah.
Wow, it's just great. It's a great book, Newton.
Thank you.
Newton, it's a great book. I'm urging you to go buy it's out.
It's on the website too, which is.
We can show I think when you're on screen, most of your website's being shown. They can do that. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at your neighborhood bookstore, because we want to keep bookstores alive. And there's a launch coming up in New York. Tell us about that.
Right. We're doing a New York City launch because I'm professor of medical humanities and literature at NYU now. I want to say that. A great medical school. There's a launch on November 14th, Monday, next Monday at 7 o'clock at the Soho Playhouse down on Van Dam Street, and it's free. And if you know anybody in New York, have them come. And Janet, Katie, and I are all going to be on stage together with Adam Pertman, who's a Newton resident and an adoption guru. So the three of us, I'll be reading, they'll be answering questions.
Now, has that ever happened before?
That
the three of you have been on
we
stage?
We did that once before, a couple months ago at the Cambridge Public Library with the Harvard Bookstore. And I want to tell you, Katie's up, I read a little, and then it's questions and answers. 200 people there. Katie's a little shy still. And the questions started coming mostly for Katie, what it was like and stuff. And she had never talked about it, really, any of this stuff. She's talking like a young woman. She's answering all these questions with maturity and fun, and everybody's crying. The audience, I'm crying. And then at the end, the best thing a parent can have happen. In the end, she looked at Janet and me. She said, you two did a pretty good job.
Oh, wow.
I started crying.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
So we're going to do it again. It was so much fun.
Right. Will it be taped, by the way?
Yes, that will be videotaped.
And then probably it'll be available on NYU's NYU Medical School's website,
it'll be on
your website.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to see that, Newton, you can also, if you're not going to be in New York, you can access it that way.
I just want to say,
yes,
you are terrific. All those years ago, 1980, and look where we are, and you were a light to me because you really started me up in the theater, the whole theater thing, and I thank you.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah. I mean it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. That's really nice. So tell us about just the process now of, you're trying to promote your book and how that is for you. You're a writer, not a salesman, How do you feel about it? Do you go on book tour and that kind of stuff?
Well, I just came back from 3 weeks in Australia, and I'm mostly known for the House of God. It was really very interesting, I must say, because I came out of giving this huge talk one evening at this huge convention, thousands of people, and I'm walking back to the hotel, and some guy runs out. He says, Dylan won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Oh, yeah. And I said, oh, my God. And then the next morning, I was on the radio show.
Did you know it was Bob Dylan, though, when he said Dylan?
Yeah.
Not Dylan Thomas,
no, everybody knew.
Yeah.
So I was on this radio show, national radio show the next morning, and I was so moved. So I read one of the stanzas from a really wonderful song I love called Up to Me. And one of the stanzas is, I was always too stubborn to ever be governed by a false insanity. Somebody had to tell this tale. I guess it was up to me, and I really identified with that, because that was my motivation. He was a resistor in those days, as you know. Yeah. He was our voice, partly. He's even older than me. Right. And I'm a resistor in medicine. And I got the feeling, because I was in these big crowds at these big things in Australia who were just wild about the House of God. I said, Jesus, I'm the Dylan of docs.
I was thinking about, while we were talking, you said that you were never encouraged to write.
Oh.
I get, the Jewish mother, the Jewish father, I know you have to be a doctor. Was that what was going on?
Oh, yeah.
But you had it, so you became a doctor, which served you for a while. I mean, you were a shrink.
I was lucky. Except for the tiniest flicker of a butterfly's wing, none of us are here, right? And one flicker for me was getting the Rhodes Scholarship. And I had the Rhodes Scholarship. I started to write. Right. And then I faced a very easy choice: Vietnam or Harvard Med. Yeah. And I made one really sensible decision. I valued writing so much I wasn't going to write for money. And I would go to medical school, find something I could earn a living from, and write. And it worked out. Psychiatry was wonderful because I wrote in the mornings and went and saw patients.
It certainly has worked out.
It's worked out.
Best-selling author. In 30 words or less, did that influence what kind of father you wanted to be in terms of allowing Katie to find her own butterfly wings?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, well, with Janet as my co-parent, Katie had no choice but to develop good mutual connections, which are at the heart of everything.
Fabulous.
At the heart of the universe.
Thank you so much for being on. What next for Shem?
Shem is just got 2 novels that are done and ready, and then I just started another one.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you here. This is November 2016. It's Adoption Month, I think, so it's
National
fabulous.
Adoption
Okay.
Month. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you for being on. And we'll see you next time. Oh, I want to thank Raviolis, by the way, that gives pizzas to the crew. I want to thank Needham Brownies, which gave us brownies and some beautiful gift brownies here. We're well fed between pizzas and brownies. And thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next time on That's the Law. Good night.